recording TST meeting, where are we, April 11th, I think, post ONS. So we have a couple of items. We have one MCORD related collaborator proposal, and time permitting, I'd like to talk about how we restart the ACORD effort. And there's several people that have approached various of us interested in it, and just like to see if we can figure out how to get going on that. And ONAP we could do as well, although one aspect of ONAP that is especially relevant is to ACORD and the analytics aspects of ONAP. So it strikes me that that's a place that we might start that exploring the integration. And then Donna wants to talk about component owners. Let's start with are there any other agenda items?
Yes, Larry, we should probably start talking about XRAN integration, which would impact ONOS.
Okay.
And Larry, also just the regular acknowledgements item.
Yes, thank you. So if you could start there, David.
Sure. So as you pointed out, Larry, this is the first time we've met after ONS, so other people may have other shout outs to give, but there is one that was added to the wiki. I think it was from Mark. I don't know if Mark's online if he wants to speak to it. Okay, if not, I'll read it out. He added, shout out to the MicroSMI team and Sean, Shane, and Francesco for their terrific job making the eCord demo of ONS reach its full potential. So thank you to Mark for adding it, and then thank you to everybody he mentioned in there for doing a great job. I don't know if anybody else has any other ONS related shout outs.
Well, yeah, the others that are on there are actually ONS related and they were since our last meeting. So I mean, Matteo, everyone who has any demos at ONS understands the importance of all the GUI work that he did to make them look as good as they did.
Yes, absolutely.
Nice. Yeah, and Shrikant is called out as well on here for the I guess you're right, we didn't get to these last time, so the previous two. So shout out to him as well.
Yeah,
Ping to the list.
Sure.
She's been instrumental in getting all of the MCORD demos up and running.
Yeah.
And she's been working tirelessly towards that.
That's great. That's great. Well, if you remember, add it to the wiki so that on there. Great. Any other shout outs?
Thanks, David.
All right.
So let's go to the collaborator proposal, and I just would ask Oz or whoever from MCORD that wants to talk about it could introduce it.
Sure. So this is, if you recall, one of our really primary agendas is to turn MCORD into a field triable mode. So on that front, this collaborator is quite instrumental. They are a small cell / microcell company which have taken the Cavium RAN solution and they have hardened it, both hardware and the software. And they have already done field trials across North America. And they have gotten all of the FCC approvals and whatnot. So their collaboration will bring to us a hardware that is ready for field trials and built on a software that we're familiar with and we have done a lot of innovations on, including slicing. So all of a sudden, we will have all our innovations that are field deployed. So for that, I see their participation quite important.
Great.
Yeah, this sounds great. Are there any questions? It looks like they're committing resources. This looks like a perfect collaboration proposal.
Yes, and they will be also working with Argela to get the Argela slicing solution embedded in their solution as well. So all of the MCORD innovations on the RAN side will get there. And I will have a meeting with them in 2 weeks. And I will bring up the XRAN integration in there too. So I'm really hoping that down the line we could use them for field trials of XRAN too.
That's great. That's great. Does anyone have questions? Yeah, go ahead. Nope. So I think we may very well have the same problem we've had before, which is we need to address this. We don't have a TST quorum. I have a feeling. I see Andy, and I don't know. Maybe I'm missing someone else.
There's no one in the room here.
Yeah. So, all right. I will corral the TST to try to get approval to this, but I guess we do have a TST membership issue that we're going to need to address, and I'll confer with Bill to understand what the governance says about that. We do have an election coming up mid-year, which we're not quite to. We can just keep suffering along the way we are now. But Bill and I can put our heads together to see if there are alternatives. Bill, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, let's talk about it, Larry. We might be able to do something in the interim before the election.
Good. Yeah, I think we probably need to do something. If governance allows, we can figure something out in the interim.
Could go with a silence equals consent model? If I'm forwarding these proposals to the TST list in advance of the meeting and nobody objects on the list, and if we have these calls and people don't.
You could, but I'm okay using the are there any objections as a voting method when I know who's on and paying attention, but it's not clear people are reading. I mean, we've got, people that have left the project, and it's not clear how much attention they're paying to that. So let me see if we can get this particular proposal stamped ASAP. But Bill and I will figure out a plan for what we can do between now and the official, again, I think it's mid-year election. I'm not sure if that's June or July, but we still got a couple months.
And the election is for TST membership that does the approvals for these proposals.
Yes, that's right. That's correct.
Okay.
Amongst other things, but yeah, that is one of the TST's responsibilities.
Okay, because I was going to say, as I review them, from my point of view, obviously I don't have a vote, so I'm, but that's good to know that it's mid-year.
Yeah, and yeah, obviously we're happy to hear any feedback people have, so that you read it and you liked it or whatever is great to hear.
All right, so I'll wait to hear from you, Larry.
Thanks. So let's see. Let's talk about component owners, because it's another similar kind of governance sort of thing. We started out with a kind of default component ownership, and I don't know that we have ever formalized what that means and how it works. And I'm again going to turn to Bill for help with how this works with ONAS and what model we might apply here, or what procedures we already have written down.
So there is a definition of component ownership and what levels of privileges they have, and that probably John or somebody can list what they are. I don't know them off the top of my head, but the people are nominated out to the list, and then people either agree. Mostly it's people agreeing to the suggestions that are made. Occasionally there is a disagreement on it, and then discussion happens.
Okay, so I mean that's kind of informally how it's been working, but maybe not as well defined as it ought to be. Donna, did you have a particular case in mind? I'm not hearing you if you're talking.
Oh yeah, I'm talking to my speaker. I I could give Volta as an example, where we're having, component leadership changes, rate assist. We'd like to submit our name to, if you will, co-lead, join on lab as component leaders. And, how do we do that? I'm using Volta as an example.
That's a great example. And in fact, it's exactly the same issue in some sense that we have with Cord because of just the turnover in people.
Right. And that's another one, right? That's another one we could look to discuss, but certainly would like to understand, what is the voting process? What do we need to do to get our, any vendor to get, partner to get their name in the hat for a leadership? Because you don't want a single point of failure. So do we, how do we step forward?
Yeah, good. All right. Thanks for raising the issue. So let me talk about what I was going to do with Cord as an example. So I was the TST, liaison because we wanted to make sure that there was some connection between the TST and any one of the projects, and then Srikanth was the primary contributor, although he also had help. And so what I was planning to do, and like I said, a number of people have talked to me about being interested in Cord. I was going to try to find a time that we could have an organizational meeting of those interested, and then we would just, talk about possibilities. And, it comes down to who's willing to step up with resources and put time into it. So Srikanth did that.
Right.
That was a natural outcome. I guess I would ask the Volta community project to do the same.
Okay.
Now the problem is Ali was the TST connection point, and I'm not sure. I mean, he may be perfectly happy to participate in that. I know that to some extent a bit of that effort's passed along to Jono. I'm not sure, Jono, how deep into that you are.
Not very deep right now, no.
And also, at one point, I know that David Bainbridge, who I don't know if he's online or not, had gotten a briefing from Zoll. So
yeah,
I'm a little bit unsure how to bootstrap the process on Volta.
Okay. I have a meeting with the team.
Someone else?
Yeah, the point I was going to make, there's no barrier to making contributions to any of these projects, even if you're not officially recognized as a component leader or anything like that, right? So the projects can still function. I guess I'm not really sure exactly what responsibilities the component leader or manager has.
Well, yeah, and one of them might be similar to a PTL where you're holding, a weekly or monthly meetings, where you're nominating in architectural changes, where you're seeing that code reviews are happening, things are moving along to ensure the delivery, right, of component features in the roadmap. These are the kind of things I'm thinking out loud. That's needed in Volta. Never mind, I'm sure that the same thing is needed in Cord using those two examples. But having that, that component leader or co-leader, just keep conversations going, keep innovation going.
Yeah, it's what I'm hearing is it's really more of a, let's call it a product owner role, just in exactly what you said, keeping things moving forward. It's maybe a little bit less about who's checking in the most code.
Exactly. You're right. It's a product owner, and it's funny because that's who I am. But so I see it. That's the way I see it, because we need to make sure that we have checks and balances and accountability to delivering on needs, right, and prioritizing. It's otherwise we have absolutely no control on what ends up being the released component version every 3 months, if you will.
So is there anyone else that's on the Volta project online that can just speak to how generally things have been working?
So right now this is a sales. So by the way, the one piece of information, I think I talked to Saurabh yesterday. Most likely he will be the lead from OL Lab on Volta, as far as I know. And answer to your question, Larry, on Volta right now, most of the contribution is coming from Sienna. So they deliver code changes and they merge it to the masters. Then quite a few changes we contributed from Radisys, they're still pending. Somebody has to review those and take it to the next level, whether they can be merged or they need more follow-up work. I'm checking with Sienna, but looks like they're all busy on different other things. So that needs to happen.
Okay. So one good point here is that if we have Surov as, because he's a TST member, just as a contact point for now in lieu of Oli, what I would. I'm sorry?
Will Saraf replace Ali as kind of the representative into our planning sessions? Because recently we have not had any participation from Volta for the various planning sessions.
I'll ask him to.
Sprint planning.
Yeah, exactly. So this is exactly the same issue.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm going to, his not being on the call means that we can assign him all kinds of work. But I'll talk to him about not being that product owner necessarily, but just the person that helps move the process along to get a product owner or two established. Then that's someone that UN can report into you and help build out roadmaps and so on.
So just this is Cecilia, then just to extend to what Donna has said just now. So I think right after this phase 2 POC at AT&T, we will go for phase 3 sometime in May. And 2 big ticket items that we have to do for Volta is clustering for Volta and the phone management aspect. So once we set up this logistics thing, who is the lead and co-lead, we have to discuss about how to design these components and then implementation and so on.
Yes, you're absolutely right. There's a lot of work to do, and it would be helpful to have someone coordinating that. So my action item is to get this visible to Surov. And Jono, I'm going to just, since you have also nominally started to look at Volta, just ask you to help him. And I'm not looking for you guys to be that product owner necessarily, but just to help establish who we're going to have lead it. Because I don't, it needs to come from that project community as much as possible.
Yeah.
I agree. Let us know how we can get engaged and support the development of the community, and participation on the product ownership side.
Great. Thanks a lot for that. On Cord, this now just bleeds into what I was going to talk about there. I'm going to basically do the same thing. I just ask an absent Saurabh to do, which is to coordinate a call amongst all the people that have expressed interest in Cord. And, again, comes down to who's willing to step up to it. But it does seem that there are a number of people. I don't know if there's anyone on the call that is especially interested there or not.
We have some interest, and we have an operator that's extremely interested in what Cord can do today and what the potential is for Cord. So certainly, include me or include Cecile on that call and see at least to have that kickoff meeting and see what we can do in participation.
Okay, I'll do that. I'll send a broad announcement. I'm not going to just invite a few people, but just it'll be good to know that some people are going to be interested.
Yeah, we have some definite interest there, and from my point of view, it comes back down to to the ONAP discussion, right? And ACORD to me being an element of the broader management and orchestration.
Right. So what I'm thinking, this transition into ONAP for a minute, what I'm thinking is there are multiple aspects to ONAP, obviously. And one of them I've heard enough about to give me a sense that, yeah, we could figure that out. And it just basically has to do with the MSO, the Master, I get the right acronym? Master Orchestrator. What's the S?
Yeah.
Anyway, maybe it's System Orchestrator. Talking to various clouds below it and systems below it, and it's passing in a Tosca spec for what it wants. And so, I'm sure there will be some work to do there, but I'm of the opinion that will not be a overly challenging problem. But it strikes me as a really interesting aspect of the ONAP Cord relation, interaction, that we look at the analytics piece of ONAP, and that of course is, got a counterpart which is ACORD. And I'm wondering if there are aspects of the ONAP analytics that we can use inside of Cord as opposed to viewing it as merely an external thing that we talk to. And
yeah, exactly.
I don't know if that replaces ACORD, it augments it. I know that in the ONAP setting, it's monitoring and analytics. So there's a notion of Hadoop clusters buried inside of your edge, or your AIC or whatever the cloud is. That may or may not make sense at a small edge site, but the point being that the line as to where that you draw between ONAP and Cord is potentially more richer and more interesting in the analytics and monitoring case.
Yeah, but the way I look at it was back to the point that you just made. When you look at edge services or lights out central office, is you have to look at, ONAP may be too heavy, right? But there's the two use cases, the light and write, where you want some level of least telemetry collection, right? And perhaps ACORD then becomes more of a lightweight analytics to solve fault and performance, lights, a minimal. And then as well, ONAP can consume that ACORD data for more centralized, bigger picture analytics.
Right, exactly.
Right?
So one model is that Cord is in the ONAP's terminology a collector. In the analytics into things, has a collector that just delivers out to the rest of ONAP, and the actual analytics runs elsewhere. That's the, I don't want to call it obvious, but that's the most straightforward thing that we could probably do, and that leaves internal to Cord, ACORD, or however ACORD progresses. But I am wondering, I think there are enough build out and configurability to the ONAP analytics. I always get the acronym wrong. DCAE, did I get that right? I'm just curious, and I haven't looked, but I've heard it described in such a way that there might be subsystems of DCAE that we could actually take advantage of inside of Cord. I don't know that for a fact, but it's something worth exploring.
I don't have immediate knowledge. I don't know if anybody else does, but that's certainly a call to action.
Yeah. So
DCAE and AI. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what was that last comment?
No, I'm saying it's also AI. There is an analytical inventory also as part of the ONAP.
Yeah, the inventory.
There's another module. And AI.
Yeah, the inventory piece. Yeah, it's possible there too as well. So I guess the general question is, once one disaggregates ONAP into various subsystems, Cord can interact with those subsystems, but are there elements of those subsystems that we might actually bring into Cord? And I don't know the answer.
Right.
All right, so let me kick off the analytics ACORD meeting and try to get some progress on who's going to be product owner there and how we, what kind of resources we have to put on it. We can discuss the ONAP Cord integration in the context of analytics in that setting. And that might be the easiest thing to do, is just kind of divide ANAP up and consider it in different places as opposed to just one place, and we can see how that goes.
Yeah. That
Okay.
sounds
So
good.
watch for email on that, and then watch one for Saurabh on the Volta question. Okay, let's go to Oz's topic of XRAN integration with ONOS. Could you? I think I know what this is about, but could you say more?
Sure. So let me first talk about what we have and what needs to be added. So right now we have an ONOS RAN, which is used to program and configure both the BBU and the RRU specifically for RAN slicing. But even in the absence of RAN slicing, it allows us to do some software-defined programmability there. So XRAN can be viewed as an extension of that. So we need to leverage what we have for ONOS RAN to incorporate the XRAN APIs. So now, up until now, our solution has been a REST API. The reason for that is simple. The local control was remained at either the BBU or the RRU at all times. But XRAN is also about potentially decoupling some of the RAN-specific control functionalities and following the traditional SDN realm, realizing them as ONOS applications. So that would require a more real-time communication between ONOS and the BBU. So that may require certain changes to our current existing ONOS RAN. So we need to start thinking about this and start developing, the work around it.
So Oz, can you say, you said more real time. I'm assuming what this translates to is you need a lower latency feedback loop.
Yes.
And the REST API is not going to get you that. So can you say anything about where ONOS is at in that regard and what you think the targets are?
So the targets, I can tell you about the targets. The targets are more about maybe, we're talking specifically the handoff. So XRAN in their demos have shown handoff to be a program running on an SDN controller. So they would like to probably do the same with ONOS as well. So during over the course of a handover, we're talking about tens of milliseconds, maybe 30, 40 milliseconds of latency requirements of signaling coming back and forth. So these are all control messages, clearly, but we need a handshake going on of multiple messages coming back and forth that need to be within a latency of 20, 30 milliseconds.
Okay, and so the target, another way of saying this is you would need an ONOS configured in such a way or augmented in such a way that you could get 10 to 20 millisecond handoff latencies out of it.
Exactly.
Okay.
That can help to achieve such performance, but I know that someone in ONOS is looking at adding gRPC interfaces.
Okay.
Which may part of that is already in place. They're on the person. So, but I think lots of code are being merged already. John, do you know anything about that?
I don't think it's in the code yet.
There's not.
No, Aaron is just starting up the brigade for that.
Oh, I see. anyway.
So what is the ONOS brigade in this space? It's a
GRPC.
GRPC.
So there's a GRPC specific brigade. So this would be a good use case to bring to that brigade.
So we would be needing that for both northbound and southbound, actually. For southbound, it would communicate with the base stations, the BBUs.
Yeah.
And for the northbound, it would talk with, at a later time with, for example, a SON application.
Yeah. The same latency requirement?
SON application would, the northbound latency requirement would be slightly more relaxed, but still you would have a latency requirement there too. We're still talking under a second there.
Is the 30 to 40 that you're talking about from outside of ONOS application into ONOS application through and back, or is the application sitting in ONOS Java space down and back?
The whole thing. So basically,
outside of the Java application.
So it's Java app, ONOS, southbound plugin device. That loop needs to be 10, 20 milliseconds.
Yeah.
Or are they considering that outside process REST or gRPC ONOS app through ONOS to device and back?
For RAN programmability. So we have normally there are two ONOSs, right? One for Fabric and one for VTN. Actually, for mCord, we have a third ONOS, which is ONOS RAN. So I'm talking about that. But we have a dedicated ONOS for RAN. And it will probably, at least for the time being, until we start merging all of the ONOSs into one, it'll remain to be a separate ONOS. So the application will be embedded in. That's what we have right now.
So I think this is going to be a question about whether these need to be built inside the ONOS, or is it going to be another application on top of ONOS using the standard APIs. Right. So you guys are talking about using the gRPC as one of the possibility. But so my question is always like, okay, so we get some information from the RAN and coming through the ONOS and then pass it out. So what is the value of ONOS adding in this pipeline?
Well, I mean, it allows those open APIs for programmability specifically, and you can tie that because it is already tied to XOS, and XOS will be tied to ONAP. We will have policy-based programmability of the individual RAN components. And within ONOS, there's also potentially a check for whether such programs are feasible or not. You can create potentially multiple slices, and some of the configurations might not actually be fit for that base station. So those checks will be part of the SDN control there too.
So is there a proposal of what is the southbound API going to be between ONOS and
has listed their current APIs, so we will go hand in hand. So XRAN will continue to add APIs, but once we, that's another thing. Once we formulate the architecture, we have to be aware that the APIs we will be supporting will be enhanced in time. So it needs to lend itself to these modifications as we move along. But the latency requirements will not be more stringent, because the fast loop control functionalities such as scheduling and whatnot, I don't ever see that becoming a centralized ONOS application. They will always remain localized at either the BBU or the RRU based on the split. Just after this meeting, by the way, I will have a meeting with XRAN folks. So hopefully by the next TFD, I will give you a lot more details on what is required from ONOS by XRAN.
Good. That will be really interesting to hear. are there other ways that you foresee ONUS needing to evolve in support of XRAN, or, yeah, just say it specifically in terms of XRAN? I mean, is this the key issue, or is it one of many?
I would say this is the key issue, but you know, one thing that I'm a bit worried about is, in general, ONUS is ONUS going to be sufficient for, you know, a deployment grade M-Cord solution? Because especially in 5G, we will be talking about really fast mobility potentially, and millions of IoT devices. That all requires a really large number of messages coming back and forth, which needs to be supported by ONUS. So how ONUS will scale to those numbers in a true deployment scenario is a worry of mine. So this clearly, before we can make any academic assertions, I need to maybe give more detailed potential cases that will result in a deployment scenario. But how ONUS can scale to support a full-fledged solution, we need to figure that out to see how feasible it is.
But I think in general, I mean, we should get some data, and in case if it's not good enough, we should work on it.
Yes,
right? I mean, one of our key principles is scalability and performances. Yeah. So if we are not good for that, we did clearly something wrong, right?
So let me ask the opposite, the other question, which is ONUS more than you need for M-Cord along certain dimensions?
Can you repeat the question?
I just was asking if ONUS provides more than you will need along some dimension. It's general in a way that you really won't be taking advantage of. Might be useful for, I don't know, packet optical, but really wasn't of so much value to M-Cord. Just curious if there's anything like that.
So my overall issue, let me maybe clarify that. I know that ONUS is very scalable, but the scalability is still centered around a unique ONUS, which is overseeing the entire network. In a cellular deployment, you know, different pockets will observe different mobilities, different users, and so moving from a truly centralized ONUS to a more distributed and hierarchical ONUS structure is the way to go for M-Cord, in my humble opinion. So that flat ONUS structure is the one that worries me. I know it is scalable, but reaching out, imagine a scenario, I'm going to read far each now. Imagine a scenario where AT&T chooses M-Cord as the de facto 5G deployment across the nation. There, a flat ONUS will not be sufficient. We would need a hierarchical solution in that case. And that architecture is not there.
So yeah, but they're working on it. I mean, it's very experimental, but
right. But that's my worry. That's what I was trying to.
Definition M-Cord is going to be specific to the CO, right? So what do you mean by a flat? Within the CO, you're talking about global.
So
we are not going to the global.
I know, but what if everything is SDN based? So what
is our solution? In the central office or outside the central office? Outside
the central office as well. So then we still need a hierarchy of SDN controllers.
Yes, that part we need to resolve. When ONUS works with inside the core context,
yes,
it is by definition only at the leaf of the network or the edge of the network. So anything which goes on in the northbound from there has to be, we need to work that out. That's the ONAP.
But there's also an east-west problem as well. So if you have pockets of M-Cord at the edges, then you will have handover from one M-Cord pod to another one. So you are handing over, the network control from one ONOS to another one. So there will be ONOS handovers. So those are issues that we need to start thinking about.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of getting clear requirements, and then we can prioritize, requests and tasks.
Yeah.
And work.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah,
what is
I
not
think it will be interesting to have some more quantitative requirements, right? Means that how many NOBs, how many clients are we thinking about supporting for each pod, or for each metro area, right? So that will be an interesting exercise to understand the scale, and then from there we can decide whether we want to do a hierarchical design or you can do a peer-to-peer design.
Yeah. Agree.
Right. And the other thing I want to make a comment is that if I look at ONOS, right, today ONOS basically have a very big chunk of the code supporting the topology. Right. And so I'm not sure that's needed for the M-Core case.
Sorry, we didn't understand what one thing you said. Can you please repeat?
Okay, so if I look at today's ONOS core, it supports the abstraction of the link, the node, and the topology. Right. So you basically have a very good service providing understanding the graph of the network and be able to provide services so you can build applications quickly on top of that. And I'm not sure that's something M-Core needs. That's the first thing I was thinking. And then the second thing I was thinking.
On the contrary, it would need it, and it would need to actually have that dynamic. Again, we're talking about ONOS supporting XRAN or the RAN part. That automatically means we have to bring the capability of doing certain RAN side control functionalities in a centralized manner.
So August, you are saying you need a software-defined RRH kind of a RAN, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's where we're
going. And yes, you are right, because Open Daylight has some of those things being discussed in a project.
So I totally disagree. I think we need to not get rid of it for M-Cord. On the contrary, we need to strengthen that and make that even more dynamic than it is right now.
Maybe Victor, this is Sandhya. Maybe you mean we don't need some of the flow-based control that's already in ONOS? Is that what you're trying to get at?
Yeah, I think it's a RAN is like an access device, right? So you can also look at the VOTA model to see whether that's a better fit versus the ONOS kind of model. And of course, I think the caveat there is that the RAN, one of the big things for RAN is handle mobility, which is something the VOTA never thought about as part of the requirement. So that will result in a different kind of the abstraction, right? So in the RAN, typically you want to abstract out to model or to provide service for the device, which is the NOB as well as the UEs, right? Those two are orthogonal, but then the UE basically leverage the RAN as a service, right? But then it will move from RAN to one RAN to another NOB, right? Dynamically. So that is the new and unique requirement here in terms of providing a controller service for the applications.
It's also dynamic configuration and transport for a multi-operator, actually. So the RAN sharing, again, I mean, in a SDRRH requirements, there are a lot of interoperability. Currently, we have static association between BBU and RRH that needs to be software defined. I think that's what August is saying. We need to have a more dynamic flexibility.
Yeah, definitely. Yes.
Is there any more on this topic? Very interesting discussion. Okay, let's move along, which I believe is to adjournment. Are there any other issues?
So, you mean on this topic or something else? Anything else?
Yeah, anything else generally. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I have one at least. So I already brought up this in the past, but nothing happened since then. So I think we have an issue to clarify to service providers, people that want to deploy ONOS today, whatever is the use case they want to deploy REM, what's the basic hardware they should buy and what software should go on it. And I think it's a pretty basic thing, right? I mean, we're working to do something that is deployable, which is not today. On the other side, I see system integrators like Radisys, for example, doing field trials and stuff. So, but when I ask to everyone tells me, oh no, it's experimental software, or I don't know, ask to someone else. So I don't know if there's a disconnection. We have to ask someone else, but I mean, we need to get there. I mean, that's the basic, right? Without that, people cannot even install the basic pod. So
is the access hardware the issue, or just
yeah, the access hardware?
Primarily the access.
Well, the access hardware and the software that goes on it, right?
Okay.
The most basic example that comes in my mind is Cord, right? We have, I don't know, Tbit is experimental. Celestica, AT&T uses it, but we don't know if they want to keep selling it or not. The software, no one understands who wrote it, where it comes from, how to install it. Not even commercial people from Celestica, Microsemi, or whoever is called now the company, they know anything about it. So concretely, if you want to install a Cord pod today, okay, you install the servers, you install the switches, you spend 10, 20,000 K, and you can't do anything with it.
No, you need the Maple, and at least the Broadcom stuff is working. Maple and Qumran. Those are working right now.
The OLT.
OLT.
But the guys of Broadcom just told me, the guys from Cord, they just made 3 boxes.
That's the problem. So we have to.
Well, it is, right? But
we have to procure the hardware from Cord or the ODM vendors. But the softwares are right now working. It is being tested now at AT&T and at Radisys.
Right, but I'm just saying we are building something for the community, right? We are not like the personal collaborator of AT&T. It's important for us, but it's one part.
Yeah, no, I know the problem. We don't have enough hardware. So Broadcom has their reference box that is moving around from Petaluma to Portland to Austin and different places.
So I'm just saying, people at this point, they tell me, I don't even care for now if it's even proprietary, expensive, not expensive. Just give me a pad to test something, right? Because like this, I can't test anything. If I'm not a big partner of the community, or if I don't have a contract with a system integrator or whatever.
But we have access to the Calyx lab, right?
I don't know. Who should I talk to? That's what I'm saying, right?
I thought Calyx was providing one rack for us, and you were working there in Calyx lab. I saw.
So the pod I have in Calyx just have the complete nodes, the add node, and the fabric switches, not access equipment. But it's great to know. For example, if Calyx, Fujitsu, if they have OLTs, they are proprietary, they are expensive. Well, okay, but better than nothing, right? I mean, really much better than nothing.
Yeah,
I just want to have the contact of a sales guy. That I won't paste it probably on the website, I don't know. But at least I can give a path to people to say you have something that works.
So does Fujitsu or someone else have the Cord box is limited availability still? It's not even GA yet, right? Obviously. So do you know Fujitsu has a box which we can use as a reference? OLT? You don't know.
I mean, they built something, but I don't know if they sell that or how you get
how you get hold of it, or what software you need, or anything like that. So, it's a path we could go down, maybe. Follow up with him.
And that's just for Arcord. It would be great to know. I think with an Encode, things might be easier, not easier. What do you think? If I'm a generic person today that has money to build a pod, right? How much concretely is available today? How much I can buy, and in terms of software, hardware, everything.
So it always boils down to the access, right? When you think about it. So right now, the only access we have incorporated into Cord is the Cavium reference design. So they can buy the access from Cavium.
But is there a list on like anywhere?
Is it orderable? Is that the question? Is it offer?
Probably no. We don't have it on the web.
So right, the list is the.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. We need that, and then even for another thing is the VNFs are the other part, and those we have, at least from our collaborators, we have a number of options. The reason, probably, at least on my part, I'm creating that list is in parallel. We are trying to get, at least for the software end, not the access, but the core part, the VNFs, we're trying to come up with an Cord open source offering. Because both Radisys and Intel have open sourced some components to us. So we'll pick and choose different components, make sure that everything is interoperable. We'll own it and open source it. So once that is the case, that'll become part of the Cord download, and in an optional vertical way. But until we make sure that the open source solution is working fine with the current Cord, I'm a bit hesitant to put it out there.
Okay, that's fine. I'm just saying in general.
Yeah, but I think this is seriously, obviously, an issue which we need to figure out. So, from the Cord perspective, Bill, who is now the lead? Ali was the lead earlier, so now who is that? Saurabh? Is that Jono? Who is going to? How are you going to?
There isn't an official lead of Cord right now.
Okay.
So, Seem, you may have missed the earlier discussion about managing Cord / Volta.
Okay.
But we clearly need a product owner for it, and so we're going to try to bootstrap that process.
Okay. Okay, so I think at least Cord, we should be able to get to that list quickly and get an answer quickly. So if Cord is not,
Yeah, and I mean, when an open source thing comes in, well, great. We will add that as an option to the website, right? I'm not in favor of sponsoring like a single proprietary box or a company on our website publicly. But well, I mean, if that's the only thing that works with our solution and that's the only thing that people can buy today, it's a fact, right? It is what it is. Then when something else open source comes out, we will put it there.
You mean white box?
White box, but also in terms of software. I mean, the software that goes on the box. I'm sure that lots of these softwares will be still proprietary and so on.
Okay, so if Radisys can help, because you guys are actively deploying this, selling this service.
Well, as I said, the OLT software stack is proprietary. So Broadcom has their Mattel and Qumran stack.
Right.
The Calyx has E9 stack.
Okay.
So the rest of the components like Onos and Volta is open source, as you know. Right. So we have to share the pod that Calyx has built up in the San Jose lab. But again, there is only one E9 OLT in San Jose, which is right now in Austin for POC 2. So it will come back to San Jose lab again, then we can share that.
So that is for us to test. I'm talking about if we need to recommend to someone who wants to try it in their lab, we don't have currently any hardware we can talk about which they can procure. That's the question Luca has asked. It's not about our internal testing, which we can potentially do with the sharing, but what about XYZ service provider wanting to try our Cord in their lab? How would you go about doing it? Let's say today you are working with AT&T, tomorrow you work with someone else. How does that work?
Right, I'm just saying, CO in a demo, right?
Yeah.
Demo we did.
Yeah.
Right, that's a fancy website, but whatever, at least let's get the equivalent just written statically.
Correct.
Right?
I hear you. That's a big impediment in getting it deployed and talked about. So, since I understand Telstra, Deutsche Telekom, all of those are your customers. So I don't know how they are handling this issue. I'm not speaking anything which is not public knowledge, I hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have to work with some ODM vendors like Cord to assemble the board for them.
So you have that arrangement already made, do you know?
I know that is talking to Cord for this, but I don't think anything has been finalized yet.
Cord to build the Celestica box?
No, the Maple Qumran best OLT
Broadcom box. Yeah.
box.
I don't know, there's a disconnection also there because really the guy of EdgeCore came here the other day. They told me don't even plug the box into the power because we just manufacture the box.
That is the AT&T box. Which there are three different levels. So the one which we showed in ONS, the one with the glass case or the bug, is never tested.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the third generation. There's a second generation which is supposed to be what people can use today.
I see. Okay.
Okay, and they are maybe not combined. There are two different boxes. One with Qumran, one with the other thing, and they work together somehow.
Okay.
So that's the one I think people are buying right now.
Yeah, I think Cord will be the most for a year.
Also with Celestica, guys, I mean, it's not magic. We should go back into the chain and arrive to the person that is responsible for that, right?
Yeah, we have tried multiple times to get at least from what I'm hearing. So the microsemi PMC Sierra chip inside the Celestica box is a problem. That they are not supporting that anymore. And we can't get into the readers, but
No, we can take it offline. But I'm saying, for example, we are doing all this integration of the Celestica box with the Volta. But what? I mean, if the box won't any longer exist anymore, what are we doing?
What Ali told me is we reverse engineered something for Telefonica.
Oh, but they won't sell anymore the box, right? That's what I'm getting from people that there was this thing. Many people, even in India, they ask for this box, and they say, well, we kept just very few in stock, but the sales guy told me they're discontinuing the box. So that's the case. I mean, it's useless what we are doing. That part of the integration.
To solve. So let's take it offline and figure out that.
Are we ready to adjourn? Time says we are. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.